Friends, could I ask you all to please be upstanding? And I want you to turn to the person to your left or right, and with your elbow, hit the person next to you and say, Happy Tuesday. Now you can sit down. And the reason, you're probably asking, why is this person on the stage who's the Greek version lookalike of George Clooney? I don't know why people laugh. I mean, Vince Sorrenti says it all the time. So Vince says it, it's got to be right, isn't it? Well, Vince is probably Australia's best comedians, and if he says it, then I believe it. But on a serious note, the reason why I ask you all to be upstanding and with your elbow touch the person next to you is because we can't hug. As you know, Greeks, Lebanese, Italians, Armenians, the lot, when we show our love, we just hug the person, regardless of whether it's a male or a female. Isn't that right? But unfortunately, because of COVID, we couldn't do that. So unfortunately, if you want to do that later on, well, that's your business. But I don't want to get the Australian Lebanese Chamber of Commerce in trouble and turn this event into a COVID spreading event. So hence why you use your elbows and not your hands or any other bodily features. But the other reason why I did it, because I dare to be different. And the Lebanese Chamber of Commerce dares to be different. The Chamber is one of the oldest chambers in Australia and does a great job when it comes to networking, connectivity and working with business, government and community. And the history of the Australian Lebanese Chamber of Commerce is one that we should all be very proud of. So it's great to see so many people here today to support this organisation. And isn't it great to see so many of us in the room after COVID has gone through our wonderful city that we're able to come together again without any restrictions. So it is fantastic. So happy Tuesday to you all. For those who don't know who I am, my name is Paul Nicolaou. I'm the Executive Director of Business Sydney, and it gives me great pleasure to welcome you here at the Australian Lebanese Chamber of Commerce event. This is an annual event, and it's great to see so many of you here today. Yes, please. Firstly, just some housekeeping before I start. If you need to go to the boys' or the girls' room, they're on either ends of this room. You need to take the stairs up and it'll lead you into those facilities. Secondly, if there is an emergency, then please follow the instructions of the staff and they will direct you to where you need to go if there is such a circumstance that has happened. And thirdly, if you've got a mobile phone, please put it on silence because we don't want it going off when the speeches are on. So thank you very much for that. Firstly, can we acknowledge the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people as the traditional custodians of our land that we call Australia. The Gadigal people, the Eora Nation, are the traditional custodians of this place we call Sydney. We pay our respects to their elders past and present, and we extend that respect to Aboriginal and Torres Strait people here that have joined us as well. Friends, as you walked into the room, you would have been asked for your business card. And that goes into the draw for the Lucky Door prize, which we will be drawing at the end of the event. And Z and Z have donated, Julius from Hurstville have donated 2 rugby league watches. So if you haven't done so, then please speak to any of the board members of the chamber and then they'll make sure that your business card, you can only put 1 in. Right, you can't put 2 or 3. I've seen a few people throw in 2 or 3 cards in. That's not on, and we really encourage you only to put 1. You could put 1 for your partner if you want, but you need to scratch out the name and put, Debbie or John or whatever name you would like on that. I am glad that you're all eating the food. It's Paul Signorelli. Is Paul Signorelli in the room today? Where's Paul? Paul, there he is. Where's Paul? Paul. There he is. Stand up, Paul. Stand up, Paul. Stand up, Paul. Now, Paul has told me he's offering 10% discount on anyone who'd like to use his facilities today only. If you want a bar mitzvah or a wedding or a christening or whatever, Paul is offering 10%. So you just go speak to Paul. He's got the contracts there, and I'd really take up that offer of 10%. But Paul has been working in the kitchen from 4 o'clock this morning. So the food you are eating, he did with his own hands. So, Paul, thank you very much for hosting this event here and for your ongoing support for people and businesses in Sydney. Friends, can I take this opportunity to acknowledge some of the guests that are in the room? Firstly, can I acknowledge our special guest speaker, and that is Mr Chris Minns, MP, New South Wales State Leader of the Opposition and State Member for Kogarah. Now, something special about Chris, he got married in this room in 2005. And he's been married, I think it's now 15 years? How many years is it? 15 years. Isn't it great? Isn't it great that he's been able to come back here and celebrate his wedding anniversary here in this fantastic room? So if you do see Chris, congratulate him on the fact that he got married many moons ago, but at the same time, he also had it here in this fantastic space. Can we also acknowledge His Excellency Mr Raymond El Shalati, who's the Consul of Lebanon, who's here with us as well, and we welcome him. We also have the President of the Australian Lebanese Chamber of Commerce, Salim Nicolas, OAM, and his board. And I went to uni with Salim and Danny, and so we were only at university a few years ago, of course, and it's great that both of them are here, and it's great that Salim is the President. Can I also acknowledge the board members of the Australian Lebanese Chamber of Commerce who work tirelessly and effortlessly in supporting businesses and supporting the community generally. Can I also take this opportunity to acknowledge Mr Steve Camper, MP, State Member for Rockdale, Shadow Minister for Small Business and Property, and Shadow Minister for Multiculturalism. Where is Steve Camper? Steve, there he is. We welcome him. If you have any issues in relation to property, small business, shadow and multiculturalism, please make sure you make a beeline to Steve Camper. The other person we'd like to acknowledge is Mr Jihad Dib, MP, State Member for Lakemba, Shadow Minister for Emergency Services, Shadow Minister for Energy and Climate Change. Where's Jihad? Jihad, where are you? There you go. Thank you. Welcome. Thank you very much for coming. We also have with us the Honourable Shouket Moulzamain, MLC, Member of the Legislative Council. Where's Shouket? Shouket, where are you? Put up your hand. Oh, there you go. Good. Beautiful. Great to see you here. We also have with us the Honourable John Ajaka. We all love John Ajaka. He is the former president of the Legislative Council. Once we lost John, the council hasn't been the same, as you could well imagine. The bear pit isn't always the most pleasurable place, but when John was there, he did a fantastic job. And he's a former state minister and the current chair of the Sydney Local Area Health District Board. So we welcome John Ajaka. Plus, he's also the chairman of the NRL Foundation, which is a great foundation and great cause. We also have with us the Honourable Katrina Hodgkinson, former Minister in the O'Farrell and Baird government, and is also on a number of boards, and we welcome Katrina here that is with us today. So thank you very much. Friends, we also have with us Michael Checker. Where's Michael Checker? Michael, put up your hand. There he is. Beautiful. We love Michael Checker. Bring him back to Australian rugby. We need him. But Michael, who is an Australian professional rugby union and rugby league coach and former rugby union player, is currently the head coach of the Argentinian national rugby union team, and he's also the Lebanon national rugby league team coach as well. He was a coach of the Australian national rugby union team from 2014 to 2019. It's great to have you here, Michael, and well done on your career, and thank you very much for joining us today. Friends, we have many mayors and councillors from across the councils throughout New South Wales, and I'm not going to mention them all. There's too many of you to acknowledge, but thank you very much, and thank you for all the work that you do in our community. We have sponsors and members of the Australian Lebanese Chamber of Commerce, and we thank them for their support. And during the lunch, you will see the sponsors' names appear on the screen, and if you are keen to do business with them, please do so. It's very, very important. Friends, it's been a year of mixed uncertainties and challenges for all of us. This year has had the floods that have impacted the lives of many people during the winter COVID-19 and has peaked, as we've known, in Australia and has affected the business community. Let's spare a thought for all those people, friends, in Lebanon who are still recovering from the 2020 explosion in Beirut caused by the ammonium nitrate at the port that caused 218 deaths, 7,000 injuries and US $15 billion in property damages and leaving over 300,000 people homeless. So let's spare a thought for all those in Lebanon, but also please acknowledge the fact that the Chamber had been helping a lot in Lebanon after that situation. So congratulations to the Chamber of Commerce for all the work that they've done in Beirut after that horrific situation. And friends, yes, please put your hands together. But also let's spare a thought for the people of Ukraine. As we've seen recently, Russia has invaded the Ukraine And we wouldn't want to be in their shoes. So aren't we lucky that we have a country like we have here in Australia? Should we really appreciate what we have here? And thankfully, can you imagine if we were born elsewhere and we had to suffer those situations? So it's terrible. But so anyway, let's also spare a thought for those people as well. On a brighter note, the Australian Lebanese Chamber of Commerce role is to strengthen the trade relations between Australia, Lebanon and the Middle East. They've got a history of over 36 years and has supported local businesses to expand their operations both nationally and internationally. The Chamber creates opportunities for its members and guests to network and expose their businesses to a wide community. The Australian Lebanese Chamber of Commerce is deeply honoured and appreciative that it's retained its strong membership in 2022 and the loyalty of its sponsors, who would like to thank them for their ongoing and unwavering support and commitment. The Australian Lebanese Chamber of Commerce is also very proud to have acquired new sponsors in 2022, and they are Lightning Broadband. Is anyone here from Lightning Broadband? There we go, whole table there. Isn't it great? They've just joined the Chamber, so thank you very much for your support. Coppersit, have I pronounced that correctly? Anyone here from Coppersit? Coppersit. Oh, no, it's not you. Coppersit. Okay. Over there, if thereabouts. Great, fantastic. And we also have El Australia. Where's El Australia? Have I pronounced that one? L-E-L Australia. Are they here? No? But if you want to do business with Lightning Broadband or Coppersit, then offering a 10% discount. Isn't that right, boys? Yep, 10% discount. Yeah, they've agreed, so feel free to go and talk to them about doing work with them. Okay. Just bear with me a little bit longer and then we can get through all the housekeeping requirements. Shh. The Chamber would also like to thank its long-term partner, the Arab Bank Australia. And we have the Chairman, Jeff, and also the CEO of the Arab Bank, Joseph Risk. Where is the Arab Bank? Where are they? Jeff. There we go, over there. Okay, and they're also offering 10% discount on services required at the Arab Bank. So thank you very much, Arab Bank, for your continued support. The Diamond sponsors, Etihad and TradeLink. Platinum sponsors, the Commonwealth Bank, Dulux, Energy Trade, Dakin, J&J Metro, Teco, and all the gold and silver sponsors displayed on the screen on the screen behind me. So please put your hands together and thank all those that are members and sponsors of the Australian Lebanese Chamber of Commerce. Also today, the Chamber is announcing that they've got the wonderful privilege of supporting the Cedars of Lebanon rugby team. And they're going to be coached by Michael Checker, and Michael will be coming up shortly to tell us more about how the team is going and how they will go over at the World Cup and win, of course. And they're also announcing today that Sharp Extensive IT, where's Sharp Extensive IT? I think, yep, okay. They're offering a 10% discount on any television screens, computers, or anything they have on to offer. And we thank Sharp Extensive IT for sponsoring the team and also being a major supporter of the Australian Lebanese Chamber of Commerce. And we will hear from the CEO Mario, later. But I'd like to inform you, on your table there is a flyer, and you can win a VIP experience for 4 to watch your favourite sporting team in the luxury of a corporate box. Now the trick is you need to use you need to get your phone and scan the what are these called now? I've forgotten. A barcode. Yeah, the barcode. Well, it's not called. It's a barcode. No, that's the. Yeah, yeah. That's right. So scan that, and then you'll put your details in, and then you go in the draw to win this fantastic offer by Sharp Extensive IT. So thank you very much, Sharp. And if you'd like to partake, make sure that you fill out that form, which is fantastic. Okay, where we go. Now, friends, it now gives me great pleasure to call on the President of the Australian Lebanese Chamber of Commerce, Salim Nicolas OAM, to say a few words. Please put your hands together and welcome Salim.
Good afternoon, dear honoured guest, Mr. Chris MP, Leader of the Opposition, distinguished guests. Looking around the room, we have a perfect example of the diversity that has become so much a part of Australia. All ranges of ages, male and female, from many countries and businesses backgrounds. Mr. Minns is a great example of the new breed of politician who are emerging in all levels of our political landscape. Individuals who are open, honest, and genuine in their approach and responses, and reflective of the diverse nature of the wider community. Speaking personally, coming from a migrant background, I recognize the strength that comes from the inclusivity that is so evident in Australian society. With our borders now gradually reopening, we will see a return to a stronger migration. The newcomers to our country will bring their own specific skills and help in growing and developing businesses from which the whole community will benefit. As many of us here are involved directly or indirectly in the construction industry, the gradual return to previous immigration rates will provide opportunities in employment, skills, finance, and property ownership. We should all welcome the improved population increase and be ready to accept the challenges and benefits it will provide. We should also encourage our politicians to maintain their openness and frankness for the benefits of the whole community. On the ALCC side, the Chamber is currently involved in offshore employment programs with professionals in Lebanon who are able to provide online services to Australians. Some examples are various engineering design disciplines, drafting, architectural services, computer graphics, and so on. We take pride in facilitating these programs as part of what the Chamber is all about. And we also take pride to be part of this community present today. Welcome all and thank you.
Please put your hands together and thank the President for his wonderful presentation. And thank you for your leadership. And it's important that we have people who step up to the plate to manage organisations such as the Australian Chamber of the Lebanese Chamber of Commerce, and it's great that we've got Sam and Salim and his colleagues who run the chamber, and they do such a great job. So thank you very much. Now, friends, I'm going to allow you to enjoy lunch, and then I'll come back to you after lunch, and we'll have Michael Checker come up on the stage, say a few words, and then after that we'll also have a presentation by the Leader of the Opposition, Chris Minns, and then after that I'll be doing a Q&A with him, and then we're going to allow some questions from the floor. Then Mr. Minns will head off because he's got to get to a plane at the airport, and then we'll draw the lucky door prize, and then we'll have you at the door around 2:30 so you can go and have drinks on this level at the end of the pier. So please enjoy. Paul Signorelli, as I said, has been working tirelessly with it to provide us with this wonderful food, and enjoy the hospitality here from the staff here at Daltone House. So please enjoy, and I'll be back to you shortly. Thank you. Sorry to disrupt you, but I'm just conscious of the time, and I need to get our guest speaker out the door at 2 o'clock. Now, I'd like you you can still eat, but you can't talk, if that's possible. I know, most people, my wife says that I can only do one thing at a time, but I know everyone in this room can do two things at a time, and that is to eat and not talk, which is always an interesting way of doing it. I'd like to show this video, as I mentioned to you before, Sharp Extensive IT are sponsoring the Lebanese football team going across to the World Cup, and Sharp are a great company. It's been, as we all grew up in Australia, Sharp has always been an iconic brand for everyone, and it's great to see that Sharp is still going strong, and it's great that Sharp Extensive IT are sponsoring the team and supporting the chamber. So I'd like to just show you a quick video before I call on our guest speaker. So please, if you could stop talking and eat and watch. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Mario Bernartovich and I'm the Managing Director of Sharp Extensive IT and EIT Solutions. The world of technology is forever changing. Managing that change continues to challenge organisations in every industry. That's why organisations from a variety of industries choose Sharp EIT and EIT Solutions. Sharp EIT and EIT Solutions are leaders in audio, visual and print communications. Whether it's a sporting team, a stadium, a club or an office, Sharp EIT and EIT Solutions can service any industry. Our range of printers and copiers are globally awarded, and our display panel solutions were created to enhance any space, from a small meeting room all the way to some of the biggest stadiums in the world. At Sharp EIT, we are proud to support a range of charity organisations such as the Kids Cancer Project, Miracle Babies and Oxfam, to name a few. Sharp EIT and EIT Solutions provide the infrastructure and specialist support to guide organisations of all sizes confidently into the future.
Thank you very much. Please put your hands together. Where's Mario? Mario, can you stand up? Where's Mario? Mario. There he is, stand up. He's offering 10% discount on any of your services you want to use from Sharp Extensive IT. Fantastic. Well done to you, Mario, and congratulations on supporting a great cause. So well done to all the work that you do, and it's great to see Sharp here today. And Mario's going to be available the whole afternoon. He's cleared the diary, so if you want to do a special deal with Mario and his team this afternoon, please feel free to engage with him and go forward. But the reason why we've got that is that, and as not only do we have Chris Minns, but we've also got Michael Checker. And Michael Checker is the former head coach of the Australian Rugby Union Wallabies team, and in 2015 received the Rugby World Coach of the Year award after being the only coach to have won the majority of rugby club competition in each of the hemispheres, winning the Hainki Cup and the Leinster in 2009 and the Super Rugby with the New South Wales Waratahs in 2014. Michael is also the only coach to have ever been appointed the head coach across two simultaneously World Cups. In the last Rugby League World Cup, the Cedars reached the quarterfinals under the coach of Brad Fittler, and as Checker takes over the reins this year, he aims to ensure another strong World Cup performance for the Cedars. Friends, please put your hands together and welcome Michael Checker to the stage.
Thanks, everyone. Look, in true Leb fashion, no one told me I was speaking today, so I just will have to make some stuff up and see how it goes, all right? So I'll give you what I will do, because I won't speak for too long. I'll give you a bit of an idea of what's happening with the World Cup. The World Cup is this year in England, mainly in the north of England. Lebanon will be based in Manchester. In our pool, we have New Zealand, Ireland and Jamaica. And don't be fooled, anyone that's thinking about Jamaica, because they have a fair few chaps that are playing Super League over there. We won't just be sitting around smoking a few cigarettes together in the dressing room, that's for sure. So the thing is this, right, that you should know. For all the Lebanese people that are here in particular, for a team that really sort of didn't exist once upon a time, it's not like there's a huge... there's a small competition of rugby league in Lebanon, 4 teams. You've got to have it for you to be federated as an official federation of the rugby league. The teams had a lot of impact in sport and the landscape here in Australia. For a team of, I suppose, immigrants, many in my own situation, parents born in Lebanon, and they're born here and they've grown up as Aussies who are Lebanese as opposed to Lebanese who become Aussies, and they often have the choice, if they're good enough, to play for both countries, to play for Australia and for Lebanon. And from what I've seen so far of the lads that have been coming in to get involved, their passion to play for the Cedar flag and to pay respect to their heritage, I think is something that's really cool, because these days those things get forgotten pretty easily. But a lot of these lads have got a lot of pride about playing for Lebanon, and they've made a big impact in the last World Cup, a huge impact that was played here with a big Lebanese community. And we've had unbelievable support from all of the Lebanese community, business-wise, because just so you know, for example, we have to pay for ourselves to get over there, because the World Cup of Rugby League will pay for you to come from Lebanon, not from Australia. So we've got to come from Australia to get ourselves there. So we've had unbelievable support from many businesses in Lebanon. In Australia, I've made a lot of Lebanese people who are running those businesses. Of course, our major sponsor, Sharp, who you've seen, Expensive IT, who you've seen here today. That's been really big for us. The coaches have been looked after by a company called Energy Trade. They've really helped us to get things happening so that we can get over there. The squad will start to assemble around the 3rd of September, 4th of September. We'll train through there. There'll be a final selection match against Italy on the 23rd of September, and then we'll leave for the World Cup on the 3rd of November. And then we play a warm-up game against Wales over there, and then we will play our first game against New Zealand on the 16th. The head coach, who's coaching with me, I won't call him an assistant because he knows a lot more than rugby league than I do, is Matt King, who's here today from the Sydney Roosters. And I think the consulate should consider getting a passport ready for Matt anytime. He's embraced the Lebanese culture and everything about it, and he's really enjoying being involved. But that's the sort of plan of attack. If we can get our way to a quarter-final, it could be against Australia, which would be a great event over there somewhere in early November. And finally, I suppose, a lot of people might say, well, why rugby league and Lebanon, etc. But you know what? For the people over there, we just finished a camp over there for the guys. There's 3 players from Lebanon will come as part of the group. We just went a selection camp and they had a playoff match to decide. And for the people over there who don't get to see their national team play very regularly in any sport, to have 80 minutes to take the chance to forget about your troubles and watch sport and cheer for your country, I don't think there's anything else better that the lads here as the diaspora could do for their country back home. So thanks everyone for taking the time to listen, and I hope you get behind the team when they're playing over there.
Michael, we know that Sharp IT are sponsoring the team.
Yes.
We need more support, isn't it? Is that correct?
Yeah, I'm not. No, because I'm not coming here to ask.
Okay,
for cash.
no, okay. Well, I can ask the cash. Don't worry about you. No,
I
okay.
don't want to do that. There's been amazing support for us already, so I want people to enjoy themselves. What I want them to do is enjoy watching the team. I think I don't want to. That part's done. We'll work the rest out. If we have to do raffles or whatever, that's no big deal. I want people to enjoy the team and enjoy the stories of many of the lads. There's, in fact, you probably will know this further down the road, but they've done there's an Australian story being done on the team in the build-up to the World Cup as well on ABC. So we're looking at it as something that's a life experience for many of these lads, and we want more the people of, whether they're Lebanese or they're not, they're here being part of the crew, I suppose, to enjoy the voyage of the team. You know what I mean? It'll be from a distance, and that's really what we want, is just for people to enjoy.
Thank you. And Michael, one more quick question. What motivates you? What gets you out of bed in the morning to be such a person you are? And what are the things that you want people to walk away from this room thinking, well, I want to be the next Michael Checker?
No, I'm not going to tell anyone they don't want to be that at all, that's for sure. Right? No, well, I get motivated for different things in different ways. Depends on what it is. When it comes to footy, this is going to be a bit sad, but I'm motivated by winning. It's an unbelievably good feeling, and the feeling it's a rush. And in fact, the alternate feeling when you lose is what you want to bounce back from. I think it teaches you to have a certain amount of grit. Like, you get back up off the floor when you've been bashed up. You can get back up and get ready for another game. You go through the mourning period and you get ready for it. It's taught me everything about life, taught me different languages. So I love the passion of that. But I think just doing your best, mate. If you can go home every night and say, I've done my absolute best here, and you feel good. My kids are at the game on the weekend. They came to Argentina to watch a game, and to see them on the field afterwards, enjoying the fruits of the stuff that we've done, that's the most reward you could ask for, So that's motivation enough, I suppose.
Beautiful.
Anyway, thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together and thank Michael Checker. And Michael, we wish you all the best in everything that you do, and we do miss you in the Australian rugby. But anyway, it is what it is, but you're doing better things and exciting things. So well done to you, and also well done to Sharp IT, and Mario and the team will be at the Loft, which is just further down this wharf, and you'll be able to do a deal and support not only Sharp, but also the Chamber, but also the rugby league team. So that's great and fantastic. Now, friends, it now gives me great pleasure to call on our other special guest, that being the Honourable Chris Minns, who is the New South Wales state politician, who is the leader of the New South Wales Labor Party, New South Wales opposition leader. He was elected to the New South Wales Legislative Assembly as a state member for Kogarah for the Labor Party at the 2015 New South Wales state election. Chris was previously a Labor Party official, a ministerial advisor, a firefighter, I can't wait to hear about his stories fighting fires, and a youth mental health worker. He has served as the shadow minister in the opposition front bench for a number of years, and Chris was raised in the St George area, where he studied at Marist College, Kogarah, and he holds an undergraduate degree at the University of New England in Armidale, attended Princeton University in the United States, where he was awarded the Master in Public Policy in 2012-13. Chris is married and has 3 sons with his wife Anna. Upon his return from Princeton, while his wife pursued her own business opportunities, Chris became the carer of his young sons before nominating for Parliament. Chris has previously worked in the charity sector for youth mental health charity, as well as a firefighter and as advisor of the New South Wales Government, and also as the Assistant Secretary of the New South Wales Labor Party. Chris was first elected into public office in 2004 as the Penshurst Ward Councillor of Hurstville City Council, and was elected a term as Deputy Mayor in 2007 and 2008. He joined the Australian Labor Party in 1998, where he was 18 years old, and was elected the member of Kogarah in 2015. Please, friends, welcome Chris Minns.
Well, thanks so much, Paul. That's my Wikipedia entry, so I might have to bring you on the road with me when I give speeches. It's wonderful to be here with all of you, and thank you for coming in such large numbers. It's a real privilege for me to attend this annual lunch and to see so many friends and familiar faces and really titans of industry in the state of New South Wales, drivers of the New South Wales economy over what has been a difficult last couple of years. I'd like to, of course, pay tribute to Salim Nicolas, the President of the Australian Lebanese Chamber of Commerce. Thank you, Salim. It's wonderful to be here with the Consul of Lebanon as well, and my colleagues, Steve Camper, Jihad Dib, Shuket Musulmani, who are all in attendance, as well as local mayors and former members of parliament like John and Katrina Hodgkinson. Coming here and listening to the stories about this Chamber of Commerce, and in particular Salim's story, a twin, somebody that grew up in Lebanon, that came to Australia in 1984, that had to bounce between Cyprus and Lebanon and Australia to complete his high school certificate, and in the end completing it in 6 months, years 11 and 12 in 6 months at St George TAFE, before starting a business, going to university, and then becoming president of this Chamber of Commerce. I think to myself, what would the early rounds of immigrants to Australia from Lebanon think about the task and the step that they took to come to a country on the other side of the world on what would inevitably be a big gamble? Not knowing the culture, not knowing the language, in many cases not potentially sharing the same religion, but deciding that it was better to start a new life and to take on an adventure. And I suspect that those first rounds of immigrants to Australia in 1880s would be hugely impressed and overjoyed to see this organisation and the people who are involved in nearly every facet of commercial and public life in this country, the Lebanese community of Australia. 250,000 people in Australia claim Lebanese heritage. 70% of them live in New South Wales, and with such a huge number involved in the property, commercial and development sector, they have literally changed the face of our city for the good, and we owe a huge debt of gratitude to the people in this room and those that have come beforehand. And in many respects, the story of Sydney is a story about immigrants coming to this country, working extremely hard, creating a life for themselves and their families, and adding to the culture and the economy of Sydney and New South Wales. I think about Paul Signorelli and his father Biagio coming to this exact wharf and then 40 years later buying it and putting in this wonderful function centre and wedding reception centre. And Paul's right, I did get married in this room 16, 17 years ago, and I think our marriage is still going strong. I haven't seen my wife in a few weeks with all the work that's taken place, but I'm pretty sure we're still going well. I'll have to check in tonight. Look, the budget outlook, the economic situation in New South Wales is really challenging. The circumstances facing everyone, whether it's businesses, whether it's the New South Wales government, whether it's small businesses and enterprises, is challenging. If you look at the inflation rate running at 6.1%, potentially higher than that, certainly in Europe and the UK it's running higher than that, the resulting interest rate increases, the crunch when it comes to credit, as well as the difficulties in attracting and securing labour, it is difficult for businesses. New South Wales will find it particularly difficult. We are in a situation where the government has, according to the budget papers, accumulated $183 billion worth of gross debt, which in absolute terms and percentage terms is the largest this state has ever accumulated. It will be soon the case that the number 3 budget item in New South Wales will be interest on the debt that has been accumulated. Many of that and much of that is as a result of the COVID-19 measures, which are difficult for governments of all political persuasions to accommodate and deal with. And that will be the situation whether Labor wins the next election or the coalition wins the next election. But we do need a team that's in place that's prepared to fight for and lift up the New South Wales economy by helping businesses, whether it's their input costs, whether it's the difficulties associated with acquiring labour and the skills shortages that is undoubtedly the situation in the New South Wales economy. And Labor's prepared to take on these challenges. And the way we're doing that, my colleagues and I, is not by running down the Liberals and the Nationals. I've got no interest in criticising them or bad-mouthing the New South Wales Premier, who is in fact a friend of mine and someone who I consider to be a very decent, genuine person. We want to compete for the votes of the people of this state in the best way possible by offering an alternative pathway for economic growth, for looking at skills transformation, for how Australia will compete with our competitors right throughout Southeast Asia, and how we will invest in frontline services to help everybody in this state. I'm going to nominate 3 things which I think are particularly important. Firstly, tolls. The situation in New South Wales is that we're the most tolled city on the face of the earth, and we've got effectively a 100% privately owned toll road monopoly. One company owns all or part of the M2, the M4, the M5, the M5 East, the M7, the M8, Cross City Tunnel, the Lane Cove Tunnel, North Connects and the Eastern Distributor. We need to do something about it. The costs for businesses are just too big. The costs to get around Sydney are just too extreme. So we've identified holding on to government ownership of both the Cross City Tunnel and the Sydney Harbour Bridge and using that revenue to ease the tolls paid by businesses and commuters, particularly those located in Western Sydney. We need to make sure that people can commute and work and transport goods and logistics and infrastructure across metropolitan Sydney without those input costs crippling the budget bottom line. That's number 1. Number 2 is skills. Now, skills shortages are a factor right across the economy in Australia and increasingly right across the OECD. I can tell you in New South Wales there are half as many apprentices today in 2022 than there were in 2011. 2011, we had 54,000 apprentices in that particular year. Last year, we had something in the vicinity of 22,000. That means there's an underinvestment in what we regard as TAFE vocational education. We need to make sure those funds go into it because I regard it as an investment both in the economy and for opportunities for young people. And I've got no doubt, and I can point to Salim on my table, that many people in this room would have got their start in a New South Wales TAFE to give them the skills, the opportunity and the confidence to start their own business or have a trade that can work right across the economy. We want to invest in TAFE to make sure that we've got those skills and those opportunities in the New South Wales economy. Lastly, manufacturing. Manufacturing is very important. We've got a situation in New South Wales where we've lost about 42,000 manufacturing jobs in the last 12 months, while in the same period, we've got a situation where Queensland's added about 7,000 manufacturing jobs. We want to make sure that there's good pathways for young people to start a trade, to earn a skill, to work in an industry where they work with their hands, particularly in regional New South Wales. It might be in the Hunter Valley, it might be in other cities or towns in regional New South Wales. It's crucially important for the New South Wales economy. So we're going to start by mandating a 30% tender weighting for domestic firms, Australian firms, that will build and manufacture here, right here in New South Wales. Now, there are three practical things we think we can invest in to get the economy moving, to make sure that we've got a dynamic, forward-looking economy, and that rather than the New South Wales Labor Party or oppositions of any political persuasion standing up here or on the news, bagging out the government, talking down the state, whinging about how difficult things are, focusing in a positive way about what is possible in New South Wales and what is possible in Australia. And I think it's that same positive, optimistic mindset that has driven so many businesses here to such success, that's seen so many migrants come to this country and be huge successes in their personal businesses. And I'd like to capture that same spirit for the New South Wales government. Happy to take questions, and I really, really warmly appreciate the opportunity to speak to you today.
We're just removing the lectern from the stage so everyone can see us. Thank you, Chris. That was a great presentation. The great thing is that I contacted Chris earlier this morning and said, let's wear the same blue tie. So we're both looking very blue in our outfits. So, Chris, well done, and thank you for coming today. I know how busy you are, but it's great that you've been able to present today and also be in this Q&A. And I've got to give you a couple of bouquets. Firstly, you brought the Labor Party together and you've shown leadership, which is fantastic, and you've also provided us with a credible alternative here in New South Wales. And then also the fact is you supported the government during COVID, and that's a big thing to do. And congratulations to you in uniting the party, but also seeing that we need to all work together to get through this crisis. And yeah.
Yeah, no, thank you. Thanks, Paul. I got the job between the Delta outbreak and the Omicron wave. And at the time, there wasn't a huge outbreak, and we were just starting to see the end of lockdowns, and business was coming back, and it seemed like industry was ready to take off again. And then we got another round of COVID hitting New South Wales and Australia. And I remember speaking to my colleagues like Jihad Dib and Steve Camper and saying, if Kerry Chan was sitting across the table from us, would we really be saying, no, you're wrong and we're right? And I thought the Premier, Gladys Berejiklian at the time, was doing an excellent job. Now, that's not a political statement, she just was. It was extremely difficult to balance the needs of the economy as well as keeping people safe, and I thought she was making the best judgments in the interest of the people of the state of New South Wales. So rather than jumping up and bagging her out, I thought, let's support her. Now, more often than not, I'd stand in front of the TV cameras and say, I think Gladys has made the right decision, and it would end up on the cutting room floor. I just wouldn't make the TV. But I think it was the right decision, and we've tried to keep that culture and that character alive as we head into the election campaign.
No, well done. I think that is, yes, put your hands together. Your vision for New South Wales?
Yeah, I mean, it's always a difficult question. It's the hardest question in politics. What would you do differently? But it really rests on the premise, Paul, that I think that New South Wales and Australia, but New South Wales in particular, is capable of so much more. We have got property rights, we've got a stable democracy, we've got world-class educational institutions, a wonderful public education system that has produced people, many people in this room that have gone on to amazing things. I think we're capable of more. More exports, more opportunities throughout Southeast Asia, a real focus on things that we build and manufacture in New South Wales to take it to the world. I think it means a bit more confidence and using what has been a very challenging period over the last 2 years to think about what is possible in this state. If there are new and better ways of doing things, I'd love to lead a government that is open to those initiatives and ideas to push the state forward. It won't be easy, and I'm I guarantee we'll make mistakes. But I think that positive and optimistic outlook is exactly what we need in New South Wales. I see it in evidence with a lot of businesses, and I don't see why the same culture can't be transplanted into government.
Why do you want the New South Wales public to vote for you in March next year?
Well, I mean, it's a matter for them. I mean, there's going to be rusted on Liberals and Nationals that we're just not going to get, and I completely accept that. And but I would say this, it's been a long time in opposition for us, and many people in this room and in the wider community didn't vote for us in 2011 and 2015 and 2019. And I think we've learned from those failures and those mistakes to focus more on what we would do differently and on positive, optimistic plans for the future of New South Wales and presenting that to the public rather than carping or complaining about what's happening. Now, I'm hopeful that people say it's a new style of politics and we're interested in that. We think that's what the state needs. But I guess we're hungry, but we're humble. It's up to the people of this state and we'll respect their decision.
As you know, you're a party. It's not just Chris Minns. But who's your team and what do they stand for and how do you think that they will work with you going forward?
Yeah, we've got a really tight team, some of whom are in the room with me today. And you've got Steve Camper, who's got over decades worth of commercial experience as running an accounting firm. We've got Shiket Musulmani, strong, long-term member of the New South Wales Upper House, and Jihad Dib, who was a high school principal in Punchbowl Boys for many years and really understands Western Sydney. And I think what I love about Jihad is his optimistic view of what's possible, working in really tough educational environments. They're just three people that are in this room. I think we're looking at politics in a different way. We've got a young, energetic team that are looking at difficult problems and thinking, how would we do them better? We're really acutely aware, Paul, one of the things that we're really acutely aware of is how difficult the economic environment is at the moment, particularly when it relates to business. And we want to make sure that everything the New South Wales government can do to ensure that there's a good supply of skills and labour in the economy and putting downward pressure on the costs for businesses and families, that's what we will do. Because I think we've gone through a tough 2 years and I don't want the next two to look like the last two. We've got to create an opportunity for businesses to springboard in to the next 5 and 10 years.
I mean, you're right about Jihad. I've known Jihad, great teacher, principal, headmaster at the school, did wonders there. So for someone to give up a wonderful career in teaching to come into politics, as with Stephen Camper and Shiket Musulmani, it's fantastic you've got people who are passionate because politics, you don't earn lots of money. You give up a lot of time and effort and, you know, you're away from your family. Like you just mentioned, you haven't seen your wife or your kids. It's a big call to be a politician, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And one of the things that really encourages me about politics is when I've been going to schools of late, I've noticed that young people seem particularly interested in politics and public life. And look, there's a natural scepticism and a bit of a cynicism about politicians in this country, and that's probably a good trait, Paul. It's not a bad thing that people hold us to a high standard and perhaps look at us with a bit of a quizzical eye. But I hope that doesn't manifest itself into cynicism about politics because we do need good people, whether they're Labor members or Liberal members or National members or, look, even the Greens. You got to draw a line somewhere. But we need them engaging in the political process because at the end of the day, not just for this generation, but for future generations, we need our best and our brightest involved in public life because they'll make the decisions about what this country looks like over the next 50, 60, 70 years.
That's very true. Chris, in this room, there are a lot of people in property, investment, and as we've seen, there's been a slowdown in this space. Should you get elected in March next year, what are you going to do to try to encourage investment into property?
Well, one of the things that we're concerned about is the distribution of property in the metropolitan Sydney. You've got a situation where in the next 10 to 15 years, you've got Blacktown Council growing by 200,000 people. You've got Liverpool growing by 190,000 people. Camden, 180,000 people. Parramatta is about 150,000 people. Over the same period of time, Northern Beaches Council will grow by about 28,000, Sydney City by about under 40,000, maybe 35 to 40,000. And this is my favourite, Mossman Council will grow by 998 dwellings over the next 15 years. So there's not the infrastructure to deal with that kind of population growth on Sydney's western fringe. And I'm not going to be a premier that says, as Salim alluded to, in his opening address that says Sydney's full, we can't cope. We need to work on building the infrastructure and the housing to encourage people to come to Australia and start new lives. It's one of the great things about this country that you've got people from different races, religions, languages, and yet we come here and live and work side by side, not just surviving but thriving. And that means creating a pipeline of residential properties that people can afford. And I think it's about telling the story about Sydney. It can be as good, have as good planning processes as London, as Barcelona, as New York City. We don't have that yet. We've got to start focusing on it.
Yeah, one of the things that Business Sydney is pushing, we need to increase the population here in the CBD. The city of Sydney, their population is around 300,000. We should double it. I mean, if you go to London, you go to New York, you go to Athens, you go to any of these international cities, their population's in the millions. I mean, we've got the capacity. As a result of COVID, a lot of these buildings will probably will be needed for commercial. Why not look at the whole aspect of a mixture of both commercial, residential and retail? Because we need to bring those workers who are at the coalface, your nurses, your cleaners, your teachers, your police officers, your firefighters, because you were a former firefighter, we need to have them closer to the Sydney if we're going to make sure that Sydney stays as the #1 city.
Yeah, that's exactly right. If you speak to the police, for example, they say it's extremely difficult to find police for the Northern Beaches Command, for the CBD Command. It's very, very difficult. Almost impossible to find nurses that will work on the lower North Shore or the eastern suburbs because they're just priced out. They can't get close to those major facilities and areas. So if we want frontline public servants to have a vocation in public service, we have to provide the housing for them. Otherwise, they won't come and you won't get the level of service that we need in public services in particular. So it's a crucial point for whomever wins the next election.
Yeah. One of the other things that affects most people in this room is the time development applications and building applications get approved. Here it might take, I don't know, with Meriton's, for example, it takes him 2 to 3 years, Harry Triggerboff that is, to get approval, whereas he can go to Brisbane and he gets it within 3 to 6 months. And a lot of business people here in the room have got that same situation. Is there any way you could look at the whole way the planning department works and where we can sort of change things so it can become more accessible, more transparent and more effective in getting outcomes straight away?
Yeah, we're looking at that very closely. If I speak to businesses with exposure across Australia, they say that it's so much easier to do business in Brisbane and in Perth, for example. Speaking to the Premier of Perth, Western Australia, Mark McGowan, who's a former New South Wales boy, who said that they really put an enormous emphasis on speeding up approval so they can get private capital into the economy, make sure that there's that job creation pipeline. I think for some reason that's fallen down in New South Wales, and in many instances they say in terms of regulation and red tape, we're the worst state. We can't afford to be the worst state. We are competing against other jurisdictions. In a modern age, capital will go to where it's easiest, where there's the most certainty, where there's a return that they can, in effect, bank on a swift decision. And I think that's particularly true in Sydney. I also think it's true in the regions. I spoke to a man in Braidwood who ran a small business, who manufactured and exported goods to Canberra, to restaurants in Canberra. Thriving business. He said he'd been there 20 years. For the first 10 years, it was a problem of decline, people leaving the town, no one coming back in, property values falling. And in the last 10 years, it's the reverse problem. Not enough infrastructure to cope with people coming in, not enough staff to cope with the demand in the community. And one of the big reasons and big problems he's had is the local council not being able to approve development applications and LEP changes quickly enough, and as a result, private capital goes elsewhere. We can't lose the entrepreneurs in New South Wales, because if we do, we can't rely on that absence of private capital.
Yeah, otherwise a lot of people will move out of Sydney and out of New South Wales and go elsewhere, and as we've seen that with other developers and people investing in property. So anything you can do, I know previous governments have tried to fix planning, but it just seems to be one of those difficult things, and it is the driver of the economy in New South Wales, other than mining and other industries, but planning is a big issue for not only just for the property development space, but also for mining and other companies and industries.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. I mean, I've heard that in planning in New South Wales, they've created a concierge service because there's almost a admission from the New South Wales government that it's going to be difficult to do business with them, so they've created a concierge to try and guide you through it. It shouldn't come to that. It should be a straightforward process with a quick decision so that you can have certainty in where you apply your capital. And we can look to the other states and other jurisdictions about how they do it. Part of it also, Paul, is selling what Sydney looks like, explaining in detail where the transport nodes will go, where there will be population increases, how we'll integrate that with urban space and parklands, selling that to the people of New South Wales and being honest about what we need to do over the next 10 years to fit people into this state.
What are the issues that you're going to be campaigning on leading up to the election? You mentioned 3. Are they the 3 that you're going to be, or are other issues that you think are going to be attracted to the public?
Well, look, the most immediate impact for many people is the cost of living, whether it's the household budget or input cost for businesses. I'm really committed to domestic manufacturing. I think there needs to be pathways, particularly for people in regional New South Wales, and explain to them where the jobs will come from. Our biggest export good, Paul, is coal, but there are real challenges when it comes to coal because we can't demand that other countries buy coal from New South Wales. And if that starts to slide and that drops as a percentage of our exports, we need to fill those opportunities and jobs with other things. Now, Queensland, Victoria and Western Australia have brought back domestic train manufacturing. I think we can do it in New South Wales because I think we've got great engineers and manufacturers in this state. And secondly, of the top 6 transport projects that have been offshored, they've had budget blowouts of between 40 and 50%. So the taxpayers aren't getting the savings. We're not getting the jobs here in New South Wales. And I think that it's a good boost for economic development, particularly in a place like Newcastle. We have to say to that community, here's our vision to drive economic growth for you and your communities, and for them to have faith that we'll actually follow through on it.
Yeah. Should you get elected in March, what's the first decision you're going to make?
Well, that's a really good question. I think the first decision I'll make is in relation to tolls. Tolls are really hurting Sydney's potential at the moment, and I think the decision to sell it off and privatise it when it's effectively a monopoly. People have sat in Sydney traffic and many people choose to use the toll roads, but it's crippling for many household budgets and it's really hurting small and medium-sized enterprises too because it hits you hard and it shouldn't cost that amount of money to get to and from your place of business, your next job, to see your family, to see your friends. We need to take action on it.
No, it's great. And if you ever travel down the M2, it's an appalling road. It was a great road when they first opened, but if you go down there, no investment's been spent on improving. And there's so many potholes, not on the M2, but just generally. So anything you can do to improve the roads here in Sydney, because it has a big impact. I mean, I've had to change 2 tyres and it's cost me money. And it's not just myself, but everyone has encountered potholes. If you go on the Gore Hill, if you go on any roads, the potholes is a big issue. Sorry, I know it's got nothing to do.
I feel like this is a personal thing for Paul.
It's a personal crusade.
Has anyone got a good mechanic that we can... No, obviously it's a big issue. We need to make sure that money's getting into particularly country councils that are doing it particularly tough. But tolls are a massive issue. Paul, we've got a situation where tolls will increase at 4% each year, every year for the next 20 years, even if inflation is, for example, at 2%. And if inflation rises above 4%, guess what? The toll jumps higher than that.
Yeah. Do you want to take 2 quick questions from the floor? If that's all right? Because I'm conscious of time. Michael, I'll give you the microphone, but you got a microphone. A question for Chris? No questions? Come on, there's got to be someone in there. Oh, there's a question over here.
I thought I was free and clear. No.
We've got 2 questions. There's just one here. Just keep going, Michael. There, you can just see the chap here. Put up your hand just here at the table at 30. Keep them short and sharp, because I'm conscious to get...
The film industry is the golden goose for New South Wales, as you all know. With the portal that they've got at the moment, and the amount of time they give you list after list after list to comply, and they get 3rd, 4th, 5th go, it's delaying the process. What would you do?
Yeah, there's a few things I want to look at. Firstly, we need to make sure that we're pulling the best practice from other jurisdictions that seem to process applications and building applications and red tape in a far quicker manner. So Brisbane, is my understanding, is the gold standard in Australia. I think we can borrow from what they're doing well. Secondly, there's underinvestment in those compliance parts of the New South Wales government. Fire safety is a great example. It requires a firefighter in many instances to inspect a facility and approve and tick off on the building application, which if there's no one available to do the work, you're in a situation where the applicant has to wait an enormous amount of time for the application and the approval. And I'm conscious of the fact that with inflation raging and the cost of construction index increasing rapidly, time literally is money at the moment. So we want quick decisions. Business wants certainty. We want that private capital into the market in New South Wales. We don't want it leaving New South Wales and going to another state in Australia, or even leaving the country altogether and being invested offshore. So there's a few things in that. Firstly, my understanding is the federal government is focusing now on making sure that there's that pipeline of immigrants coming to this country. It's crucial for the New South Wales economy. We just don't have enough skilled labour to make sure that the pipeline of works is actually being undertaken. The second question, I'm really conscious about the limits of the New South Wales government and not promising things that I can't deliver on. So the costs of imports to the country related to construction are the resulting increase in the costs are many and varied, some of which have to do with the conflict in the Ukraine, some of which have to do with rapid inflation in the UK, some of it has to do with the Fed in the US lifting interest rates to pretty high levels. It's difficult for me to make a prescription in relation to that, but in my view, that means that the New South Wales government needs to do everything it's responsible for to make sure that compliance costs are as low as possible and that we're transmitting and processing applications as quickly as possible.
Thank you. Good. Last question down to the end there with Michael.
Thank you, Chris. Powerhouse Museum is going to cost an absolute fortune to move to Parramatta. Is it too late to save it from Darling Harbour? What are your views on leaving it where it is and improving the development there? I'm sure the cost to move to Parramatta on a lot of land that floods money could be better spent elsewhere.
Yeah, thank you, sir. I mean, I think that horse has bolted. I was in Parramatta the other day and they're well underway when it comes to construction. I have to give the government credit. They have made a decision to keep the existing Powerhouse Museum at its current location. I was there last night actually at a function. Obviously, we need to make sure our cultural institutions are well funded so that people have opportunities to take their family places. And when visitors come to this country and this city, they've got things to do and see. Yeah, you've got to give the government credit. They've made a decision to keep it in Darling Harbour. But thanks for your question.
Chris, two quick questions for me and then you're going to go. When you were a firefighter, did you appear in the firefighter annual calendar?
No, not as far as I remember, unless someone took a picture surreptitiously, but it wouldn't have sold many calendars.
Because you've got the looks. For,
No, I don't.
You could have been
I don't. My gear's on.
January or February firefighter of the year.
It's a hard pass.
Yeah, it's a hard pass. Okay, no problems. Why did you give up firefighting and go into politics?
Well, I mean, I was actually walking past a fire station and I was bored with my job and it had a vacancy. They were hiring and my wife's a bit of an adventurer, so am I. She said, all right, you can do it. We didn't have kids at the time. So, yeah, I finished off my uni degree and did that part-time. It was good fun.
Fantastic. Isn't that amazing? So if you have a fire at your place, you know who to call because Chris will be out there to put out the fire straight away. The final question, and because I'm conscious you've got to go, what gets you out of bed in the morning and what motivates you?
Yeah, I mean, I think Michael was saying winning. I think the thing that gets me out of bed is losing, actually. Worrying about losing is probably the thing that I'm most fearful of and is the big motivator in my life. Thanks, Paul.
Please, friends, put your hands together and thank Chris Minns. Chris, all the best, very best. I mean, there's 8 months to go. And forget December and January because December's party time and January's holiday time. But you've got a big... few months ahead of you, and so we wish you and all your team all the very best. Thank you, Chris. Please, thank you very much. Okay, can I now call on Mario Bernatovic, who is the CEO of Sharp IT, to come up and give the vote of thanks so we can send Chris Minns off to the airport.
seeing myself up on that big screen, I've definitely got a head for radio, so... It gives me great pleasure to be standing here today with an opportunity of proposing a vote of thanks to today's guest speaker, the Honourable Chris Minns, the Leader of the Opposition, who despite his busy schedule has accepted to be here today to share and express his vision for this great state of New South Wales. With such an esteemed audience at this event based at the Australian Lebanese Chamber of Commerce, we at Sharp Extensive IT feel particularly privileged and honoured to be present here today, and more so to be the principal sponsor of the Lebanese Rugby League Federation. It's an opportunity for us to see, to be here in the great presence of such esteemed and refined audience. Our thanks go to the Australian Lebanese Chamber of Commerce for organising this lunch and for the support which we have provided in exposing the Cedars team to today's refined gathering. We look forward to future opportunities and providing our services as Office Solutions and IT and taking part in the future ALCC events. In closing, I thank you all and wish you all the success in your future ventures.
Mario, can you get a photo with Chris? Can we get a quick photo of Mario and Salim? Is that all right? Just one more photo. This is, yep. Sorry, just bear with. Friends, please again put your hands together and thank Chris Minns, and we wish him all the very best for the next 8 months that are coming up. And if you want to engage with with Chris, then feel free to get in contact with his office. Chris, okay, you're going to do the presentation, Chris? Yeah.
Good afternoon again. Just want to thank Chris for being present today and being so honest. And I'd like to present you with a painting drawn by one of our board directors depicting some landscape of Lebanon, Mr. Michael Risk.
Yes, Michael Risk. Well done, Michael. I've got one of his paintings in my house, and every time I walk past it when I'm doing the vacuuming on Saturday, because I'm a domestic New Age guy, I always think of Michael, and it's a great painting, and he does a great job. So if you need anything painted, he doesn't do nudes. Is that right? Because his wife would be very annoyed if he was to do nude painting. So if you want a painting of yourself, or if you want a painting of your house or your garden, Michael, Michael? Can you please stand up? Yeah, stand up, Michael. Michael, stand. He's shy bugger. There he is. Well done, Michael. Thank you very much for your paintings. They are fantastic, and it's great. And thank you, Chris. Now, Chris, you're going to make a beeline out to to your car so you can get to the airport. His chief of staff's in the room somewhere, I think. Okay. You're going to take him out the door. Thank you.
One last present. It's actually a single malt whiskey produced by our distillery in Tasmania to Paul Nicolaou. It's handcrafted too.